At least two of my colleagues in the Senate aspiring to the presidency, Senator Cruz in particular, have voted to weaken the U.S. intelligence programs just in the last month and a half. And the weakening of our intelligence gathering capabilities leaves America vulnerable.
Listen, I understand why Marco would want to tell voters now his position on immigration is the same as mine. I understand that he now regrets having been taken the position he did and having everyone see where he was. But I literally laughed out loud.
Senator Ted Cruz started with immigration, took a couple swings at Senator Marco Rubio. Then Rubio firing back with talking now in the wake of Paris about the surveillance program and what's happening in the Senate. We're back with the panel. Robert, interesting that he chose two senators. It didn't mention Rand Paul, who obviously clearly has a dog in that hunt, but pointed out to Senator Ted Cruz. What's going on between those two candidates now?
These are two people who came in their 40s to the United States Senate, and they're watching these outsiders, Trump and Carson, really dominate the race. But many insiders, people close to Rubio, close to Cruz, think eventually the field will narrow, the lanes will narrow, and you could have a Rubio-Cruz fight for the future of the party.
But surprising to see Rubio take a swing like that?
Rubio has played on the ropes all year, just waiting to throw a punch. Now it's getting closer to the Iowa caucuses. We're only months away, and you finally see Rubio starting to climb the ladder and throw some shots.
Ron.
Yeah, what Rubio's been great at is when he's been hit, he's been able to turn that against the enemy, usually the press. When the New York Times did the story about his finances, he made that about indictment against the New York Times and played himself up as a blue-collar guy. This is the first time he's thrown a direct punch like this.
Charles.
Look, I think we're looking at the final four. Carson and Trump at the top right now, Cruz and Rubio. And as you say, these are two identically aged Cuban-American first-term senators with silver tongues. One of them, I think, quite clearly is going to emerge as either the sort of acceptable second-tier candidate who'll go up against, the winner of the bout of Trump versus Carson. And they're starting to fight now.
Trump is obviously getting a lot of attention for some of the things he said about ISIS. We played some of that earlier in the show. Ben Carson, a New York Times article coming out about his knowledge on foreign policy. Nobody, this is a quote, has been able to sit down with him and have him get one iota of intelligent information about the Middle East. Dwayne Claridge, a top advisor to Mr. Carson on terrorism and national security, said in an interview. He also said Mr. Carson needed weekly conference calls briefing him on foreign policy so, quote, we can make him smart. Well, the Carson campaign just responded, saying Mr. Claridge has incomplete knowledge of the daily, not weekly briefings that Dr. Carson receives on important national security matters from former military and State Department officials. He's coming to the end of a long career serving our military. Mr. Claridge's input to Dr. Carson is appreciated, but he is clearly not one of Dr. Carson's top advisors. For the New York Times to take advantage of an elderly gentleman and use him as their foil in this story is an affront to good journalistic practices. Robert, I don't think we've heard the end of this one.
No, and I've spoken with Barry Bennett, Carson's campaign manager, and he says Carson's trying to read up on foreign affairs. He just had lunch in New York City with Henry Kissinger, the former Secretary of State. But you see Carson's charm early on was that he was a political amateur. He is someone who's never been in office before. But in politics today, in 2015, if you don't have a professional operation around you, people like this advisor go rogue and they cause problems.
Quickly, in the wake of Paris, does this make a difference?
It sure does. He's a decent man, a brilliant man. If you've watched him on his campaign trail, if you read that article, it's clear he's not ready to be Commander-in-Chief.
It's not a matter of picking up a fact here and there. It's a matter of having thought about this for years and years, as the experienced politicians have. He hasn't, and that's a liability that you cannot overcome in a short period of time.
We will see. That's it for the panel. But